right, another test of our 38 Super Police. I like to call these ones the snub nose freight train loads. And what these essentially are a 213 grain 35 Remington bullet loaded into 38 Special. These were cast and sent to me by Angelo over at Double Clutch or Grind 1962 a few years ago. And I loaded some in the past and did some tests in the past, but just recently I started doing more tests on them. I just did a test when I loaded one that was really light in the snub nose and a little bit heavier one in a longer barrel. But today what I've done is I've kind of split the difference. I've loaded a pretty good charge of powder and pushed these deep enough that they will fit a typical 38 Special revolver. So this is kind of going to be our old school versus new school test. You might see I have some Xtreme Defenders out here. And the reason why I'm bringing that out, because this is very new school. You know, for a long time, hollow points were the thing. And then now this seems to be the new thing that a lot of people think are a good option for self-defense. Back in the day when 38 Special was really the only option for like law enforcement, and they were stuck with 158 grain lead round nose bullets, basically they were looking for something a little bit different. And some of them went to wad cutters, but another option was these Super Police loads. And what the point of these are is to get a load going about 700 feet per second. And because that round is so long and moving so slowly, it'll start to tumble upon impact. So these are about 93/100ths of an inch long. So when they're tumbling, they're creating a damage path that's actually wider than a typical expanded hollow point. And pretty much the way you load these is you put them in the case, kind of like a 38 Special 158 grain lead bullet, use kind of charges like that. They will have to go just a little bit deeper, so you have to adjust your charges to be a little bit less than normal, unless you want to go over the charge and just fire them through a 357 Magnum revolver. But I'm trying to keep these as realistic as possible. These are probably at about 20,000 psi if I had to take a guess here of what I loaded. I'll list the powder charge down in the description and a comment. But I'm going to test these and I want to compare them to something more new school, our Xtreme Defender. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get with these rounds. Then I'm going to hit my 10% clear ballistic test. This is the back block of the previous tests I did. I still left those bullets in there because they pretty much are all the same. So we're going to go into plain clear ballistics, see what the best potential of those cartridges are. After that, I'm going to do more of a real world simulation. I'm going to 4 layers of denim in the first part of this block here, which is kind of redundant, but I like to keep my tests consistent. So I like to keep my denim on that for our real world simulation. Then we'll have 3 inches of clear ballistics, which will represent our pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting ribs or sternum into more clear ballistics. We'll see how they compare in more of our real world simulation. And then I am going to shoot at the steel to see how accurate these things can be and how hard they hit that steel. So let's get started with this test. All right, I'm not going to run that Xtreme Defender through the chronograph because I only have a few rounds of that, but I did run some rounds through the chronograph in the past, and I was getting 1433 feet per second, 410 foot-pounds energy on that 90 grain bullet. So that is a very powerful 9mm through a little short barrel. By the way, I'm testing it through my Taurus G2C because it's about the same size as this Taurus 605 revolver. So very powerful. These are not going to be anywhere near as powerful as that, but they got a lot of weight behind them. So I have no idea what kind of velocity I'm getting. I upped the charge, I would say a good 20% from what I tested them before, and I was getting 600 feet per second. Plus they're a little deeper in the case. My goal here is to get about 700 feet per second because I think that's about as fast as we can go, 750, and still have them tumble and still have them hit really hard. So we're gonna see what we get. So I'm about 5 yards from that target. Let's see what I get here with our 38 Super Police 213 grain round. 727, 703, 709, 736. Interesting, that last one was very low for some reason. I don't really know why. Let me run a couple more just to make sure that was just a one-off. And they have quite a bit of muzzle jump too, so I'll keep going with this, see if I can keep these ones consistent. 715, 714, 727, 672, 690. So some are a little bit low, but this is really my target area that I wanted to get at, right about 700 feet per second, because we're going to get about as high as we can go in energy and still potentially tumble. So let's hit our ballistics gel block. We'll see how, I'll fire a shot of that Xtreme Defender 9mm, and then I'll compare it to this and see how those compare. All right, so here's our best potential plain clear ballistics. We'll see how our new school load does, our Xtreme Defender. All right, let's compare that to our old school Super Police freight train load. Let's go take a look. All right, that tumbled out of the block. I've seen that phenomenon before. They kind of tumble up or down. So one more shot here so we can catch one of these. Let's go take a look. All right, so very interesting performance. Those penetrated a lot further than what I thought they would. When I tested them at about 600 feet per second, they stopped right at 18 inches. So we had perfect penetration here. And both these shots created a lot of damage starting at about the 10-inch mark, but they did over penetrate a little bit. So our new school design definitely is tearing more right away with tearing damage, and it kind of does that consistently, and it stopped right here at about 19.5 inches. I'll pull these out and we'll take a look at them. I won't show pictures of them like I normally do, but we'll pull them out and take a look at them. Now with our more of our Super Police, it looks like it went in straight, didn't cause a huge amount of energy dump necessarily, because they're probably going a little too fast. Right about the 10-inch mark, we started tumbling, causing a lot of damage. And you know, it looks like that other bullet exited the block out the side, it looks like, to be honest here. Yeah, there's a mark on the side, so it hit the side and went out. This one we happened to catch it, and we're at about right about 23.75 inches of penetration. So that's more penetration than I wanted. However, if we hit it with our MDF in place, that might make it like come to a little bit better penetration that we want to see without over penetrating. So I always like to see what our real world test shows us before I come to any conclusions. So let's try that. All right, 4 layers of denim, 3 inches of clear ballistics, a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard. Let's see how this Xtreme Defender does with our rib simulation. It's pretty hard. All right. Now let's try our Super Police load, see how this does. Let's go take a look. All right, so interesting, these things do kind of curve quite a bit, and you know, we're seeing pretty similar performance with our Xtreme Defender here. You know, our first shot through plain clear ballistics is backwards, this one's forward, and this is a phenomenon I've seen, and I think they are tumbling, and I think that's why they perform the way they do, but I can't really prove it. I've seen it in slow motion footage, but people still don't want to believe me about that, but that's what I think is going on. We look at our medium density fiberboard, both impacts look similar, and we can kind of see an oblong hole actually with both of them a little bit that indicate a little bit of tumbling starting. Probably tumbled about here and then went back forward. With this, we kind of were starting to tumble as well, and it looks like we slowly started to curve, and then once we get to this point here, it curves out to, you know, it's width this way, and it's pushing through with about a 93 diameter sideways motion. So with our Xtreme Defender, we have a very ideal penetration of 18 inches. With our Super Police load, we're at about 21.5 inches. So not bad overall for what we're seeing with both. A little bit too much penetration with our Super Police load, but I don't think it's enough penetration to pass through an attacker. So let's take a close-up look at these, and then we'll shoot the steel, see how they shoot on the steel, what kind of practical accuracy we can get. All right, so here's a close-up look at this gel here. Here's our MDF impact with our Xtreme Defender. Xtreme Defender down here for our plain gel. And we have a consistent tearing damage with that Xtreme Defender. Now with our Super Police, we went in at quite a bit of distance before it started tumbling right here. We got a huge amount of damage from that tumbling, but it went through, you know, a good 8 inches into this before it started to tumble. Really the question is, what's the size of these things now? Because I believe both of these are tumbling. I believe that the Xtreme Defender is tumbling a little bit because I often find the bullets backwards, and well, that's not going to happen if they're not tumbling to some degree. Plus I've seen it in slow-mo footage of them tumbling. So if this is as wide as an expanded hollow point, I think this could be just about as good as an expanded hollow point, because I think they're tumbling right away. And what we got is 568. So they are as wide as a typical, you know, 9mm or 38 special hollow point expanded. So considering they're hitting and dumping the energy and they're potentially tumbling right there, I think they're about comparable to a typical hollow point. Except you might not get the hollow point to clog, so it might be a good choice for a caliber that's, you know, not going to get expansion anyway. Now with these, this is through our plain gel. This one's almost 92/100ths of an inch. So that is a massive hole, but you don't get that damage for a little bit into that penetration before it starts tumbling. And this should be about the same, 575. Yeah, it's very similar to the other one. Through our MDF, about the same, 917. So, you know, those are the size holes going through. The difference is here though, this is going to start tumbling a little bit, and I think that's what the flutes do, is they kind of destabilize it. It's going to start tumbling through really quickly, going very fast. It's going to dump a lot of energy and continue to turn a little bit and cause pretty good damage. It's about comparable to a hollow point. With this, it's going to go in deeper before it starts to really start to destabilize. So with these particular loads, I think my original load of these at 600 feet per second was a little bit better. These going a little bit deeper, but you know, sometimes it's hard to tell from gel testing how they're really going to perform in a real situation. We can only kind of guess at that, but I think these would probably do, my gut says these would do a lot better than on regular round nose, and my gut also tells me because they have a good amount of energy and a lot of weight to them, they're going to do better than a wad cutter, in my opinion. Now compared to a hollow point, it's really hard to say. My gut feeling tells me that something this heavy would stop threats very easily. That's just what goes through my mind when I look at something like that. If you can imagine yourself getting hit with something that weighs 213 grains and then starts spiraling, that wouldn't feel very good. Neither would this though, moving very fast with 400 foot-pounds of energy. So yeah, both pretty effective, I would think, but this is not a competition. It's not for me to say this one won, this one lost. It's just kind of comparing, you know, the new school thought on stuff like this, where we're using a bullet that's not an expanding hollow point versus an old school thought of using a bullet that's not an expanding hollow point. So let's a close-up look at those. All right, I'm at my 25-yard marker. I only have a few of these. Let me see how these shoot. I'm going to aim center mass with these Xtreme Defenders. Take that one shot. That's right where I aimed. Now I'm going to aim for that same spot with our 38 Special. These tend to shoot high out of this gun, so let's see where these hit. Over the target. Let me aim very base of that target. Not sure where these are hitting. So I think they are shooting just a little bit to the left for me. Aimed a little bit right and hit center very high. So these are definitely a weird point of impact and aim with these. They're going to shoot a lot higher because, you know, there's a lot of recoil and it's jumping that muzzle up before that bullet leaves, and then that bullet leaves at a much higher trajectory than what you would think it would. So let me back up a little bit. All right, a 40-yard marker just for fun. Let's see how our 9mm shoots. All right, still pretty accurate. I don't know if I can hit the target with this. This might go right over to the top, so I'm gonna aim at the base of the target. So yeah, I'm seeing some issues here with the way that these ones are shooting. The ones I had at 600 feet per second only went high. These ones seem like they want to go a little bit to the left. So let me fire a few more. Let me go single action here. See if I can locate where this is going. It's hard to really tell exactly if there's a consistent pattern or not, but those things really hit that steel really hard, and that's the thing. These might not be any more powerful than typical 38 Special Plus P loads, but because they're so heavy, they will lose a lot less of its energy over distance. They maintain a lot of momentum. Let me back it up a little more. All right, I'm at my 75-yard marker. Again, this is just for fun, so chill out. I'm not saying you should train from this distance. Let's see if I can make a hit with our 9mm. All right, I pulled that one to the right. I don't think I pulled it. I saw that before in the past with these Xtreme Defenders. It seemed like they want to start drifting to the right at distance because they're so fast and they don't have a lot of momentum at distance, and I think at that point they start to destabilize. 38 Special, let me just aim at the base of the target, see where these hit. All right, you know, I'm gonna say 3 out of 5. It's pretty good. Let me back it up a little more. All right, 100 yards from the target. I believe I have one round of these 9mm left. I'm going to aim center, see if it continues to shoot to the right for me. So I'm just going to aim center mass. Ow. I saw an impact above the target and to the right about 15 feet. So yeah, that's something I see sometimes with Full Metal Jacket. I'll shoot like hollow points from this distance, whether they're 9mm, 38, whatever, and they'll hit the steel. But sometimes when I go to Full Metal Jackets, at that distance, they kind of go all over the place. Now with these Super Police loads, while they're not a hollow point, where the weight's in the back and they might stabilize better, they are moving slow and they're just plain heavy. So I'm hopeful that we'll have some good accuracy at distance. We should get some muzzle rise and then some significant drop. So I'm just going to aim center mass and see if I can locate where these impact. Just a little high, just a little right, or left, I should say. Same spot. So I'm going to aim a little bit low right. Those hit pretty hard. You know, it's weird because they're not super loud, but when they hit that steel, they are very loud. So I'll keep going with this, aiming a little bit low, a little bit right. All right, they were consistently hitting high left again. Or as I like to say, they were hitting California. Let's keep going. I think some of that's just me though at this distance. I'll go single action, aim a little bit low, a little bit left. Or aim a little bit low, aim a little bit right. All right, so those impacts I hit, I was aiming at the very base, the very corner of the very bottom right corner of that silhouette is where I was aiming. Got a couple left here. into this. See what happens. No. I think that something like this, actually, the way you hold it can actually change where it hits, because it really is recoiling before that bullet leaves the muzzle. So if you hold it tight, it seems like I was actually kind of messing around with that, mentally doing that. I was like aiming kind of tight or holding kind of tight, and they were hitting a little bit more point of aim. If I was holding a little bit looser, they were hitting a little bit higher. So there is a little bit there going on, a little bit of recoil where it's pushing these away from your point of aim quite a bit high. So looking at these, you know, this distance stuff was just for fun, but looking at the ballistic test here, I'm going to say it's very interesting here. It's really hard to say if one did better than the other. We know that hollow points are a good proven performer and they work really well. Looking at stuff that's not hollow points, that are, you know, designed to tumble or tear it in some other way and cause other damage, you know, it's really hard to judge that. What I'm seeing here, though, from my overview, is that it does appear to me that the Xtreme Defender type bullets are tumbling, and obviously these are tumbling as well. But it looks like what's going on is that with these Xtreme bullets, you know, there's those flutes in it, and I think those flutes provide that little bit of a regularity so that when they hit, you know, it can flip that bullet. And being a very light bullet moving very fast, it's going to start tumbling right away. So the width of that bullet, or the length I should say, will become its width. And I think that, you know, judging that, we can kind of compare that length to how big an expanded hollow point is, and we can say that that is dumping that energy and that is cutting. So in that respect, if it's as, you know, long as an expanded hollow point is wide, I think that they could potentially do about as well as a hollow point for the amount of damages that's happening. It's really dumping that energy here. Now with our 38 Super Police, it appears that that's a much more gradual curve to that tumbling. If we were to put these into a high speed camera, I think what you would see is, you know, these Xtreme Defenders, I actually have seen this on other people's videos. They go in and they start tumbling, I want to say 6 inches in or something like that, but they're curving a little bit. I think these Super Police would go in about where we see the tumbling at about 10 inches here and start to tumble around. Now when I loaded these Super Police at 600 feet per second, what I saw with those is that they tumbled a lot more immediately and they did not over penetrate. So actually that was a better load than what this is. But this is a lot heavier and a lot more power. I think something like this would be a decent load for defending yourself against a dangerous animal. Even though it's not particularly powerful, it is going to truck along like a freight train. It's going to go in, it's going to penetrate pretty well and do some damage. So judging from this, if I had to say, you know, which one is better here, I would say for regular self-defense, I think that our Xtreme Defender performs a little bit better than the Super Police, but the Super Police seems to do okay, and some of the people's testimonies, old cops' testimonies of this stuff, seem to say it worked pretty well too. So I guess you'll have to be the judge of what you think of this ammunition from here on out, because it's really hard for me to say. You know, from what I'm looking at, it seems like the Super Police wouldn't cause an immediate incapacitation, but it does seem like it would be pretty effective. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.